Hello everyone, and this is my anniversary special what if. Like, I really wanted to get this done at not a later time, earlier time. I wanted to get the recording done, get the editing done, but I didn't get the time, and also I had to get the slides right. I had to get everything right so I could just sit here, say my stuff, edit the video, and then upload it. I had to make this as perfect as it could be. And yeah, I have one more thing to say before we can get into the story. This person, Adnan What Ifs, I hope I didn't say that wrong. Yeah, they have always been pitching ideas about what ifs in the comments, and they pitched this idea of video. At first I wasn't really sure if I could do it, but then after a bit of thinking I decided that this would be a great what if, and that this person really did come up with something great, and I'd just like to thank them for their idea. Anyway, then we'll just dive into the story. So, a bit of background information. So, when Ash was born, I'm just going to say that unknowingly, when Arceus or Arceus was creating the universe, when he was making Ash's ancestors, one of them had the ability to communicate with Pokemon. Like how Ash has aura in the original timeline. I'm essentially going to be branching off of that and expanding it from not just aura, but some sort of empathetic ability to understand and relate to and talk to every Pokemon. Years ago, Ash's ancestors were students of the Aura Guardians, or the early version of the Aura Guardians, or those who would later become Aura Guardians. But eventually, because of how kind the Ketchum ancestors were, they eventually developed into their own style of communicating with Pokemon, not just with Aura, but communicating with all Pokemon. Yes, that is where this is coming from. Someone might say, then why can't Delia do it? Delia can't do it because over time, this incredible ability kind of got lost in between the generations. But Ash happened to be the special person who happened to get the ability from his ancestors, or his great grandparents, unlike all of the other generations who came before him after the ancestors who had the power. So yeah, and also Ash would be able to have amazing friendships with Pokemon. He'd be able to understand and empathize with them in ways that no one could really understand. It was almost like he was a Pokemon. Some people didn't really buy it and just thought that Ash was really good with Pokemon. But Professor Oak and Delia knew that Ash was being genuine and that he actually had that skill. They just knew it. And Gary knew as well that Ash could do it, as they used to be friends, and Gary must have known what his former friend could do. But Ash would have especially made good friends with a Poliwag. If you guys have read Pokemon Adventures, the manga, you know that Red got Poliwag as a starter. If you guys know what I mean by that, you'd see where I'm going. But I'll get into that quite shortly, as Ash had bonded with Poliwag so much that that it loved him so much and liked him, as Ash wouldn't go anywhere, not even to school, without Poliwag following him around. People used to make jokes that Poliwag was like Ash's Pokemon in Pokemon, like Pokemon class, like in, you know, like when Ash used to go to class, like these classes to learn about basic Pokemon matchups and stuff like that. When I used to go and hang out with Gary when they used to be friends, Gary used to make the joke that Poliwag was Ash's Pokemon and that it was stuck to him like glue. And Poliwag would always smile at this, and Ash would always laugh it off that Poliwag was just his friend and that it didn't need to belong to him to feel comfortable around him. And I think I've given enough background for the story to be set in motion, and now let me just get into the story. So everything kicks off where Ash, even though he loves Pokemon and can understand them a lot more, he still is a bit of a klutz and would sleep late and wake up late. And the events of the first episode pretty much go the same until Ash meets Pikachu. But because Ash could talk to Pikachu, I'm going to say that he would be able to understand it. So Pikachu would tell Ash about how when it was a Pichu, it used to live with a very nice Kangaskhan that treated it like a son. This Kangaskhan was very kind. She always looked after Pikachu when it was a Pichu and her actual child. The Kangaskhan was so kind, even though Pichu had become a burden to it. Kangaskhan never once considered Pichu not like a child, not like a son, not like something to love. But when Pichu realized that it was that Kangaskhan and it, like the baby Kangaskhan and it, were becoming a burden to the mother, Pichu realized that in order to make the mother's life easy, he should leave and let the baby Kangaskhan be with its mother, as it would be easier for the mother and it will give the baby Kangaskhan the attention it deserves. Pichu would leave and it remember how it evolved, and it would show and it would tell Ash about a memory. Where it was caught by Oak, how it treated it like it was just a gift to be given away, not an actual sentient being, just something to be caught for somebody's use and gift as something for entertainment. That's how it felt about being caught by Oak. When Ash heard all of these words in Pokemon talk, he looked at Oak and said, "Professor, I'm not sure if Pikachu should come with me. No, Professor, I don't want Pikachu to come with me. It doesn't want to be him. It has just told me and made that clear that it has no interest of traveling with me and no interest of being my Pokemon. It just wants to live peacefully and happily in the wild, away from humans, and have a happy, peaceful life as a Pikachu." And Oak would understand, as he would then tell Pikachu that it's time for it to leave and that it can go and do whatever it likes, as he would apologize for forcing it to be here in the lab like it was some kind of gift to someone. Pikachu would quickly leave, And Oak would just instead give Ash 6 Pokeballs and a Pokedex and tell him to catch whatever Pokemon he can and good luck. And Oak would recommend that Ash should probably ask Poliwag if he wanted to come with him, as back in the day it seemed like it was his Pokemon. And Ash would say that he was kind of considering it and that's what he's going to do right now. So Ash would go and find his old buddy Poliwag. Poliwag would smile at him and say in Pokemon talk, "I missed you, old buddy. Let me guess, you didn't get a Pokemon." Ash would say, "Yeah, I couldn't get one. The one that was there clearly didn't want to be there, and I understood how it felt, so I decided that I wasn't going to be there with it and force it to go through all that." And Poliwag would say, why don't I come with you? We've always been good friends, and and after you got that other Pokemon, I always wanted to come and ask you if I could come on a journey with you, Ash. Then Ash would say, "Poliwag, thank you. That means a lot to me." As then Ash would pull out a Pokeball and ask Poliwag if he wanted to come inside, and Poliwag would immediately jump onto the ball and be caught. As then, from the Pokeball, Poliwag would say, "Wow, it's quite cozy in here," in Pokemon talk, but Ash would be able to understand what it was saying. So half an hour later, Ash would get dressed and ready and would get supplies from his mom and actually start his journey. Ash would encounter an Ekans who would immediately use and intimidate on Poliwag. Poliwag would go for a water gun, which Ekans would take decent damage from. Ekans would then respond with a bite, which would do decent damage to Poliwag. Poliwag would then be hit by a barrage of poison stings. As Poliwag would be knocked down, it almost looked like Poliwag was about to faint, but suddenly Torrent would activate, as it would then overwhelm Ekans with Bowl Beam and get caught. And everybody's probably thinking, what? Poliwag can't have Torrent. That is an ability strictly for the elemental monkeys and the starter Pokemon. And to that I say, I know. But the reason why Poliwag has Torrent will be revealed later, as Poliwag doesn't even know itself about its origins. So Ash would quickly make his way into Viridian City after catching Ekans, to then make his way to Viridian Forest. He will quickly meet Samurai, and Samurai will want to bow him, as Samurai wanted to battle a trainer from Pallet Town, as all of the other three who have gone against him have beat him handily. And Ash would use Ekans against Metapod, and it would intimidate Metapod, as Metapod would take a poison sting, as would get poisoned, and Metapod would then, as Metapod, even though it had been hardened, be barraged by constant poison stings from Ekans. But Metapod would respond with more hardens, but in turn it would receive more poison stings. This process would go on until the poison would get to Metapod and it would get knocked out. And Samurai would then send out Pinsir, and Pinsir would use Grit Break on Ekans, which would do decent damage, as Ekans would then use Whack on Pinsir's arm, which would take a decent chunk of Pinsir's HP, as he would then use Poison Sting right in Pinsir's face, which would do a lot of damage, as he would continuously barrage Pinsir. This would begin to annoy Pinsir, as it was continuously barrage, and somehow would decide to reveal a surprise move that he doesn't really use around trainers, as it's not, as it's a very risky move, which would be a Hyper Beam. It would instantly knock out Ekans, but The reason why Samurai opted to rarely use it was because it caused Peter to have to recharge and be vulnerable to hits. So Ash would then send out his Poliwag, and as Peter was recharging, he was barraged by many Bullbees to lower its speed, as Peter would then begin to crush Poliwag with its pincers. As it was continuously crushing and crushing Poliwag, it would then get hit in the face with a water gun and then finished off with a barrage of bubble beams. She would then return Poliwag, and Samurai would then congratulate him and say that if he really wants to become a trainer anywhere close to the people he's battled from Pallet Town, he needs to work hard with Pinta and Metapods and really strengthen them. As Ash would then see off Samurai and make his way into Pewter City, where he'd see a man who he thought was just a stone seller who was just making ends meet, who was constantly looking at the Pewter Gym as he was setting up his rock selling mart. But Ash would decide to go to Pewter Gym and ignore the man, as when he entered Pewter Gym, he'd meet Brock, and Brock would greet him and ask him if he's on his gym challenge, and Ash would say yes, and that he was here for the Boulder Badge, and that he was going to steamroll through the entire gym. And Brock would say that he lacked his confidence, but Ash better not get cocky, as Ash and his good buddy Poliwag would pretty much OHKO Geodude, as Brock would not really be fazed by this, as he had just faced a trainer with a Squirtle a few hours or so ago, so he would be a bit more prepared for a water type. As we then send out Onyx, he would know that Onyx had Sturdy, an ability that could take a move that was supposed to reduce its health to 1 HP. To completely knock it out, but instead it would keep conscious at 1 HP, so Brock would kind of be confident. And yes, I'm using the Gen 5 version of Sturdy, not the previous generation's one, which was kind of lacking in comparison to the move that it became today. Because let's be real, the modern version of Sturdy is much better than the version from Gen 3, Gen 4, because honestly, every time I went to Brock's gym, I just one-shotted him with a grass type or water type. Anyway, that tangent aside, Ash would use Bubble Beam on Onyx, which would do a lot of damage, and Sturdy would activate, as Onyx would still be around, and this time Ash would get that sweet speed drop, and he would then take an Earthquake from Onyx, which would do a lot of damage, as Poliwag would then try to stand up, but would be barraged by a Rock Slide, which would leave it battered and bruised, as Poliwag would then activate its Torrent ability, as it would then stand up quickly and blast Onyx with a Bubble Beam, which would then instantly knock it out. Poliwag would then calm down, as Ash would then return it and would receive his Boulder Badge courtesy of Brock. Brock would then say that Ash really was an impressive trainer, and that he kind of did have a right to boast, and that honestly, his Poliwag is something special, as he's never seen a Poliwag that can access Torrent, which is usually saved for starter Pokemon. As then Ash would leave the gym, and Brock would decide to see him out, as Brock had gained so much respect for Ash. But as Brock was greeting Ash, what do you want? A handout, a family's approval? Because from what I've seen from your job selling rocks or whatever you do, you're barely making ends meet, as rarely anybody comes to buy your stuff. And I'm not sure if anybody would want to give you any approval, as a lot of my siblings didn't even know that you are the dad. So then Flint would say, Brock, I know I've been struggling ever since I made that stupid decision to leave the house. I should have stayed and helped you guys through everything. I know after your mom just, went and did her own stuff, or whatever happened to her, I don't really remember. It was so long ago, I can't remember what really happened. But Brock, my son, I made so much mistakes. I should have stayed. That is the point. I should have stayed for you and your siblings. Because honestly, if I had been there, you would have been so much of a stronger trainer. You would be happier. Everybody would be happier. It was such a dumb decision just running away like that. Just because, what happened with your mom. And then Brock would turn around and say, yes, exactly. You've waited all these years to give me whatever that was, whatever kind of apology that was. Waited all those years. You could have just gotten out of your mouth or whatever that was and just done that. 5 years ago, you could have just done that. When I was 11 years old, when I was only a year older than Ash over there, you could have just came and apologized and we could have worked everything out and we would be a normal family. But Flint would then say, Brock, I thought that you would never forgive me. I thought you would never want to see me ever again. It took me a long time to finally muster up the courage and just say, whatever, man, I need to at least try. And then Brock would understand his father. And then he would say, okay, Dad, I understand what you mean now. Probably would have done the same thing in the opposition. But anyway, if you're really going to look after everybody, you need to do this and do that. As then Brock would go on to tell his father how to look after his siblings and how to look after the house. As then Flint would understand, as then he'd say, thank you, son, for telling me what to do. And again, I apologize for what I've done. And I hope that you can go and become a Pokemon breeder or Pokemon doctor. Whatever you want to be, son, I'll always be in your corner. And then he bid Ash and Flint farewell. Ash and Brock farewell. So Ash and Brock would go to the route on the right. As then they cross it and make their way into Mount Moon. And then into Cerulean City. And then into the Cerulean City gym. So Ash and Brock would meet Misty. And because Ash was just there talking to Pikachu and meeting Poliwag, in the time where Misty had trained and made it back into Cerulean City, she had already overthrown her sisters and made them pack their things and go and do swimming shows elsewhere, as she felt that she was the only person who felt fit to lead the gym and be the gym leader. So Misty had only beaten her sisters a few hours ago, so she didn't really have time to go and heal the Pokemon that she used against her sisters. So all she had was a Starmie, and Ash would use Ekans against Starmie, and Ash would use Poison Sting, which would knock back Starmie, as Starmie then responded with Psybeam, as Ekans would then use Bite, which would be super effective and would do a decent chunk of damage, as Ekans would then look at Starmie, as Starmie would then respond with a Hydro Pump, as they clash with Poison Sting and Psybeam. And as both Pokemon put in lots of effort, Ash would tell Ekans to forget about the clash, go below the beam and bite Starmie, something that Ekans was happily obliged to and caused super effective damage instead of barrage Tommy with poison stings, which would poison it. As Ekans and Tommy would then go for another clash with Psybeam and Sludge Bomb. I mean, not Sludge Bomb, but Poison Sting. And both moves would get so intense that eventually Ekans would use Sludge Bomb, as it will begin pushing and pushing with both moves. Poison Sting and Sludge Bomb will get Psybeam, and eventually Sludge Bomb and Poison Sting would win and defeats Tommy. And Misty would then give Ash the badge and say that he really is a strong trainer, and that if Ash or any of her sisters, he would have beat all of them with just Ekans. And then Misty would congratulate Ash and see him off. I know everybody really enjoyed this part, and I'd just like to say, I just realised how repetitive my what-ifs are. So instead of Misty arguing with her sisters, and then Ash and Brock arguing with her, and then the battle happening, and I can jump on my past two what-ifs counting and counting, I decided to take a different one. And also, I'm going to make a what-if that doesn't count in Kanto. Too many of my what-ifs are Kanto-based. Now, only 3 of my what-ifs are based in other places. Like, honestly, that is good, honestly. Like, my channel is being carried by what-ifs mainly based in Kanto. Like, I want my channel to be more diverse than that. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.